Hello there, and welcome to the. I'm just confused. Are these cameras definitely on? They're definitely on because I can't see the red lights, but it's fine. I trust you, Alan, implicitly. Welcome to the Fellowship of the Ring Pull.
Hello there.
It's it's really. I've got.
I'm just confused. Are these cameras definitely on?
Okay, I'm going to switch this
They're
off because
definitely on
I've got
'cause I
an
can't
echo.
see
Close
the
all. I think I had it up on my thing, Alan. Sorry. It's really, really troubling what's going on in LA, and I hope for those of you out there, I hope you're staying safe and staying in touch with people and stuff. I have a lot of friends who live in the Palisades. I don't know how things are going down there. I have people who live in Topanga Canyon that I know that I'm very concerned about. I love LA. I love the people there, and it's just really worrying to see. Anyway, we've got a great year ahead, and I'm so sad that for our profession it's starting in such a dismally kind of catastrophic way. But to lighten our spirits, here's a little taster of someone that we've been working with, and I'm really excited to introduce you to the work that we've been doing with her. We've got a little interview to run, at which point I'll then let everyone in on the Google Meet. If you want to join us and have a chat with us and let us know how you're getting along if you are in LA, there's a link in the video description that will enable you to join us literally in person on screen. Let us know how it's all going. But we'll do that whilst we're running VT. It's about 4.5 minutes long, this film. So enjoy and welcome Tina.
My name is Tina Guo, and I play the cello and the electric cello. I was born in Shanghai, China, in the year 1985. Both my parents are classical musicians, and I was basically or literally forced into the family trade because actually playing the cello was not a choice, even though now I really love it and I'm grateful for it. So I grew up in a very, very conservative, ultra conservative classical environment. And until I turned 18 and went to college, basically I was living in this little bubble. But then when I left, and that was also the dawn of YouTube, I'm aging myself, but that was back in 2004. And I was allowed on the internet for the first time, and I discovered, heavy metal, industrial music, which I'm very passionate about. And I started experimenting with the electric cello. So that's kind of when it started. I mean, I could go on forever about this, but basically my main goal was actually to be a industrial metal cellist. And somehow I started working a lot in cinematic music, especially with my dear friend Hans Zimmer. And we started working together back in 2010 after he saw my very first music video on YouTube called Queen Bee, which is a heavy metal rated 18 and over music video on YouTube. So he saw that, and we worked on Sherlock Holmes, Inception. So those are two of the first projects. And now we've been touring together with his live show and working on a lot of different movie projects. Working with Hans on Wonder Woman was one of my favorite experiences with him, also because I co-wrote the theme with him. So I came in and he had been doing different experimentations. It was amazing. We went into a studio and the entire team was there. So it was a little high pressure with like 30 people staring at you. So that was a lot of fun. And the thing that I really love about working with Hans the most is I think his openness to everybody being able to express themselves and bring a part of themselves into it. So it's a very collaborative environment. So that was a lot of fun. And I think I was able to let out my, metal industrial cello self into that theme. Recently, we worked on Dune and Dune 2. So for that, I created a lot of custom sounds with the electric cello and the processing. The first Dune movie we did during COVID. So that was also a lot of FaceTime calls. And so I think I recorded like something crazy. It was like 80 hours or something on that project of just experimenting with different things. Also actually creating custom samples for Hans to use. And then going back after and then like recording live, I call it Robo Glow, and then Tina Guo, so recording myself on top of it. And then Dune 2 was also really fun to do. And that one we were able to do together in the studio because it was post-COVID. So it has been like I think 12 years since I did a sample library in the past, and so I really wanted to because I feel like my sound and my style has really hopefully evolved for the better or gotten worse. I don't know, but hopefully it's gotten better over the years, especially in the processing and the sound. And a huge part of that has to do with working with Hans. I think every time I work on a soundtrack with him, and we do all these sonic explorations, that goes into my permanent, type of sound and playing. And so Steve Mazzaro, one of my best friends, and also he works with Hans very closely on every movie score in the last like 15 years or so. We started working on this new sample library about a year ago. So it was a year of, I would drive up to his home studio like every 2 weeks and we would eat a lot of food, waste way too much time talking, and then, record. And we're just experimenting with doing something new and also representative of, I think, my sound now. So this library is what I think is a unique blend of sounds that I created for the Dune movie series, as well as other projects that I've been working on recently with Hans, and all of my newest, electric cello experimentations. There's a little bit of industrial metal inspiration, and also I think a lot of sounds that are useful for composers and producers because it's very sound effects based. We've actually already used it on a lot of current projects that haven't even been announced yet. So RoboGo is already out taking my work from me, but that's okay. And yeah, so it's just been about a year of exploratory sounds and then processing. And then the Crow Hill team has come in, which we've partnered with, which I'm really, really grateful for, and currently working on more effects processing just to make it very user friendly and hopefully interesting and very different than anything that's currently available.
Taking you through the project that we've been doing with Tina, who is an amazing talent and a force of nature. It's difficult to be positive about stuff at the moment because of just the sheer worry about what's going on in LA. We're joined by some lovely friends here on Google Meets. If you want to take part in the podcast, this is just a weekly thing. We get together, have a chat, talk about the music industry, and sometimes we talk about stuff that we're worried about. So, Jay, you were saying you've been deeply concerned about what's going on in LA.
Yeah, I mean, I lived there for quite a while, and I have a lot of friends over there. Apparently, they had to evacuate all the way down to Hollywood Boulevard as of last night.
And Hollywood Boulevard's where the stars are, and yeah.
Yeah, MI Musicians Institute, where I attended college, it closed. Um, it closed immediately yesterday, so today they're all doing online classes. The Pacific Coast Highway is gone. It's gone. The whole thing, all that area closer to Santa Monica seems to be fine. Runyon is on fire. Apparently, it's getting close to, as the last thing I heard, it was getting close to Griffith Park. The Hollywood sign is fine so far, but no clue what's going on. It seems to be getting really crazy, and the fire department can't really, deal with it.
I did a visit to a studio called it's called, oh God, is it called the Woodshed? No. And we spoke about the fires that happened a couple of years ago there, and it was fortunately saved. But they said that all of these fire breaks and stuff, when the winds get up to a certain level, they're of no use because the fire actually can jump. And had jumped across the PCH, so it's a real worry. Is anyone else we're speaking to based in LA, or is any information about what's going on? Charles, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I used to live in Studio City, and I know that last night there was an episode in Studio City, and I actually saw the footage and I knew the area. But I am looking at Facebook where people can check in, and several of my friends marked themselves as safe. However, a person that I knew, young man, I didn't know him well, but he lost his house. He initially had to leave, and then about a few hours later, he went back and it was gone. And it was a family home that was built, I think, in 1908, of all things. So it's been through several generations. So that's a sad episode. And then another acquaintance of mine, an actor. Do you know who Steve Guttenberg is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve and I met through Gavin MacLeod, who was a common friend. Gavin and I were very close. He's deceased now. He was the captain on the Love Boat and whatnot. But at any rate, I would, as soon as the thing started and they talked about Palisades, and I was thinking about Steve, and he was interviewed by KTLA, I believe, and pleading with people to leave their car keys with their cars because the cars were blocking the roads and the fire trucks couldn't get through. So I don't know if anybody has seen the footage, but what they finally had to do was get a bulldozer and literally push the cars off the road so that the fire people could get through. But I'll tell you, the photographs that I've seen of Palisades reminded me, I know this is a horrible thing to think about, but it's a fact. It reminded me of photographs I saw of Tokyo after the fire bombings in World War II. It just was nothing. I mean, a little concrete wall maybe, and a chimney, and et cetera and so forth, but it was that bad. I don't know what else to tell you. I have a lot of friends who are studio musicians down there. I don't know anything about their status. One guy that did some engineering for me just marked that he was safe. But other than that, I have no idea. I can almost guarantee you, having been an actor, as you know, Christian, I'm sure that the industry is just ground to a halt while this is going on.
Yeah.
I doubt very seriously if anybody's filming anything. Crews probably can't even get to work at any of the major studios. If there's location shooting, they probably called everybody in production and say, stay home until this thing is resolved.
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
That's
I mean, just for context for people who haven't visited LA and aren't familiar, the Palisades is an area that's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of at the top of Santa Monica before you get to Malibu. But from what I recall, having visited there a few times, it's less of the grid system, and in fact, it's this series of little spirals that spiral in. These kind of, they're like a long cul-de-sacs that spiral in. So if you were there and wanting to get out and the fires were surrounding you, you would almost feel like you were driving into the fires to get out. It must be absolutely, I mean, it's such a picturesque area. It doesn't feel like you're in LA at all because it's so wooded, isn't it, Charles?
It's very dense. And not only that, but the adjacent property, the connecting properties are state parks. And so you don't really have good access in or out. I guess the best illustration would be consider terraced hillside, and houses on those terraces as you go down or up. Mm-hmm. So, about an hour ago, I was watching some news. I think it was News Nation, and the reporter was interviewing the fire chief from Pasadena, and they were just talking about these problems in general. And she bluntly asked him, she said she had just gotten a report that they found human remains in Palisades. And she said to the guy, do you think there'll be more deaths? He said, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But there's no way of knowing at this point who it might be or where it might be, but absolutely. And I thought about that last night. I thought there's no way. I think they had said there were 4 or 5 fatalities. I said, oh, that's, it's going to be maybe triple digits. Yeah. And there's no way to ascertain that until this is over. And the only way it's really going to be over is when the fire has just burned itself out. There's just, there's no fuel left to burn.
Yeah.
I want to ask a very quick question, which is a more sanguine point to you, Christian, and then we can move back to this topic. Are you going to NAMM?
I was going to, but I think possibly not now. One of the reasons to go all of that way is to have meetings and stuff like that, and I think it just doesn't feel appropriate at the moment. I'm deeply concerned about. I mean, I've heard news about a composer losing their house, so I'm just kind of keeping an eye on things, to be honest. I was just going to ask you one more thing, Charles, that again, just because if people haven't visited LA, they possibly won't understand the connection of the firebombing of Tokyo that you mentioned. And that is because of the building regulations in LA. LA is, as many people know, is built on a massive earthquake fault. And as a consequence, the buildings aren't really built of stone. They're built of it's kind of chipboard. Is that correct? So they go up, don't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of drywall, et cetera. After the Northridge quake, my wife and I were actually in the Northridge quake. And without describing the fact that it was a horrifying experience, post Northridge quake, what the city did was change the codes for new buildings, and then they retrofitted a number of older buildings, literally drilling holes through a building and then setting up rebar with ties at either end to kind of hold things together. Whether or not that's effective, I don't know. And in terms of a fire, it would be a moot point, because obviously a fire does a different type of destructive thing. When the Northridge quake occurred, there were fires. Some buildings not only collapsed, they burned.
Yeah.
But in this case, even the retrofitting, I think, for earthquake specifications, or even with new buildings for earthquake specs, it would be academic in terms of the fires, because the fires are they're merciless. And you know, if you have wind like you do in this case, you create a venturi and it just sucks fire right through a room like water. Yeah. So then it just, and if there's oxygen available, you have a fire. That's physics.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to know when this will end.
Yeah.
My grandmother was born in the 1870s, and her in Chicago, and it was right after the Great Chicago Fire, and that burned the whole town down. And then my wife and I were talking about this catastrophe last night, and she said this is like the San Francisco earthquake in 1907, I think, where downtown San Francisco basically burned to the ground.
Yeah.
So in this case, I don't know what, obviously I have no idea when this is going to stop. I do not know what other areas are going to burn. You mentioned something about fire leaping from place to place. My wife worked in an area called Woodland Hills years ago. I'm sitting at home writing. The phone rings. She said, I have to leave my office. We have a fire. And I said, well, where's the fire? She said, it's where we are, which was in her area. I can see it out of my window. She was up on the 10th or 11th floor. Gets in the car, drives home. That fire leaped over the interstate where she was, across the interstate, through Topanga Canyon, all the way down to Malibu, burned Malibu. They had 1,000 fire trucks there. I mean, there were fire trucks. I live in Washington State now.
Yeah.
Or my wife and I live in Washington State. They had, and actually our state has sent fire teams from here. I know Oregon has sent fire teams. I know the National Guard has been called out. I saw a guy interviewed last night who was in the Army Reserves. He said, I'm here to serve the country. I don't care if they just give me a shovel, I'm going to fight this fire. I mean, it's very interesting how people step up when there's a crisis.
Absolutely.
And, but back to the fire situation, there's no telling what's going to happen. My wife and I are going to go to NAMM. We are going to stay with family members. My daughter was over here this morning. She texted those family members and she said, what's the deal? and they live in La Habra, which is maybe 15 minutes from Anaheim, where the convention's going to occur. There's no fires there, but they said they can smell it, they can see it, the air is affected, there's ash, et cetera, and so forth. They don't live in an area where there's a lot of foliage and the problems of wood and whatnot. But it's a damnable situation and very serious.
Yeah.
And I'm praying every day, as you know how I do.
Yeah.
And I'm praying every day that there is going to be very little loss of life, but I'm afraid there's going to be probably a whole lot more than we know about right now.
Yeah.
And then I feel sorry for people. A lot of those areas have ranches where they have horses, and so they have problems. What are we going to do with our horses? I feel sorry for families that have animals, dogs, cats, whatever.
Yeah.
And so
shelters.
It touches people in so many ways. You can always get a car back. You can always rebuild a house, but you can't get a human being back after a catastrophe like this.
No.
So anyway, I'm going to shut up and
No,
see what
not at all, Charles. Ethan, you've had your hand up. Sorry to keep you waiting, mate. How are you? You'll need to switch your mic on. There you go.
The mic just touched it, but technically. I'm good, thanks to you.
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, kind of worried about pals and stuff, and you don't want to crowd people with texts and like just making yourself feel happy that you've checked in. But yeah, so it's a difficult balance, but it's fairly kind of apocalyptic what's going on there. How are you, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I was just going to say, Charles, is anybody into Nostradamus? Because it was depicted this year for that type of thing to happen with wildfires, like big fires, and then, like unfortunately, all this stuff to do with World War III, and then linked with a nuclear bomb in Europe. But I don't know. Move on from the conversation, so a bit more positive, I'd say.
Yes, no, I don't know how I feel about Nostradamus. I think that it's open to interpretation. I think, yeah, indeed.
It's good sight for you guys. It was about 2:00 in the morning. I was watching Jason A. and Anonymous Official, and I saw the wildfires in Los Angeles, and I was like, wow, it's just so big. How does it get to that point?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've been to LA, the hills are, they're vast, and whilst the roads in the city of Los Angeles and surrounding areas are very broad and have these huge highways and stuff, it's when you get into the hills, it's not only that they're really wooded. These places that the part of the appeal of them is that they're very secluded, and these little roads that lead up, often you'll only get one car around them and stuff like that. So it's not only terrifying, to get help in, it's terrifying to get out as well. And I imagine it's incredibly disorientating when you've got all the smoke and it's dark and all of that kind of stuff. It's it looks absolutely terrifying. And this is, meant to be paradise on earth, Malibu and stuff like that. So it's I just hope that everyone's heeding to the warnings. I remember my mum, she was caught with the biggest peacetime bombing that happened in the UK was in the Arndale Centre in Manchester. I mean, really just levelled it. And my mum was rehearsing in the Royal Exchange, which is opposite. And it was outside the Royal Exchange where they parked the van that had the explosives in. And what was quite extraordinary was that not a single person lost their lives because the police handled it so well. But the thing that she said to me is just someone who's official, if they tell you to run, you run. You listen to these people. And, as Charles touched on, fuck property, fuck material goods, just save your souls and all of that kind of stuff. Sad times, and I just hope everyone heeds to the recommendations that are being given to them. Anyone else want to come in? I see that it's funny. The screen is just too far away for me to actually make out people's names. Is that Noah there? Yes. How are you doing? Is it Noah?
Yeah, I've been pretty good. Luckily, I'm nowhere near LA. I have a couple of friends there who I'm kind of hoping are okay, but actually right now I'm facing a winter storm front instead. So
it's a big old country you live in, isn't it? It has a smorgasbord of different stuff going on.
oh yeah, it's weird because like you have dry heat where I'm at. It's humid, it's hot, it's cold, and you never really get very much in between those two. And so it can definitely make living stressful, especially going outside if you like outdoor activities. But yeah, it's still a nice place though.
Where are you based?
I'm in Arkansas. I live where Walmart, the company, was founded, if you're familiar with that chain. So it's pretty corporate, but there's still a lot of things to do. Like I mountain bike and run here, so it can be fun.
Good stuff. Changing the subject kind of radically. If I have one thing to report this week, is the most extraordinary piece of music trivia, and that is the person who organised the ousting of the Syrian regime that has led to all of these problems in Syria was a gentleman by the name of Miles Copeland, the father of Stuart Copeland. He was a jazz musician. This is Miles Copeland II, not Stuart's brother Miles Copeland III. He was a jazz musician who also was a founding member of the CIA. I was just watching a kind of pretty hardcore academic podcast about our involvement in the Middle East, but I say our as in our cousins in America and obviously Britain's history there. And this guy called Roy Casagandra, who's just a brilliant orator about history and stuff. And he just went, oh, yeah, there was this guy called Miles Copeland who forced this coup in Syria. And it was just like, Miles Copeland? And I know that Stuart Copeland grew up in the Lebanon, but that's my bit of music trivia for the week. I don't know if you'd heard about that, but yeah, there we go. I've also, to report this week, I've seen a film that I really humbly recommend people watch called The Outrun, with Saoirse Ronan in. It's on Apple and it's on Amazon, I believe. It's set in Orkney in Scotland. And it's about a recovering alcoholic. So there's a bit of relatability there for me at the moment. But the most incredible performance by Saoirse Ronan, a great adaptation, wonderful narrative construction. I won't give the game away, but the way that the end is, the way that they time that is just absolutely brilliant. But also a fantastic score by two gentlemen who I believe are based in, or two people rather, who are based, I believe, in Germany. And it was absolutely fantastic. So The Outrun would be my recommendation for the week. Has anyone seen anything of interest? I've heard that Nosferatu's something wonderful to look at. And I see that also Demi Moore's got some plaudits for her performance. Has anyone seen, what was that film called? The Substance. Yeah, it's like a Stanley Kubrick film crossed with David Cronenberg, but the last act is like one of Peter Jackson's first films, like Bad Taste and stuff. Ethan, you've raised a hand. Or
Peter Jackson. Is that the Peter Jackson who did the what was it? Is that the Australian guy or the New Zealand guy?
New Zealand guy, yeah.
New Zealand guy, and he did that "We Shall Not Grow Old" thing. That World War One thing. That's Peter Jackson.
Yes. I mean, Peter Jackson directed the Lord of the Rings stuff.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a new film. What's that called again?
Oh, it's not a Peter Jackson film that I'm talking about. It's called The Substance, but it looks very kind of, the last act is very much inspired by Peter Jackson's early New Zealand films. My mother was an actress who played a scarecrow's girlfriend, and it was in the days where they used to spend money on telly in this country, and this scarecrow would remove his head and put on different heads that had different personalities and stuff. And for the last 2 seasons, they shot them out in New Zealand, and Peter Jackson was the makeup specialist, the special effects person on that. For the Brits among us that who are of a certain age, it was called Wurzel Gummidge. My mum, I was bullied incessantly at school because basically my mum was shagging a scarecrow, which is I'll never forget. Being sent to this rough school, and we were thinking about selling the house because mum wasn't out of work at that point, or resting as actors call it, and she said, I've got this great new TV series and it's got a good budget, and it's going to be shot on film and all of this stuff, because we knew about that stuff as a family. And I said, oh, that's great, Mum. So we won't have to sell the house and I'll be able to go to this school, this nasty, rough school. And I said, and what's the role? She goes, oh, I played the girlfriend of a scarecrow. And I'm absolutely fucked. And so it came to pass. Has anyone seen any good films that are worth looking out for? I don't know if anyone.
Nothing new, but I just rewatched Gravity the other day. Beautiful exercise on holding back on everything, not only music but sound design, because they're in space. The whole thing is that there's no sound. Like the premise of the movies, there's no sound in space, and it's just rewatching it now in a more like focused as a sound designer, as a composer. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
definitely worth a watch. Like a study on holding back.
Yeah. I rewatched because I saw it the first time on a plane. I rewatched Alien Romulus, which is, whilst it's flawed, some of the special effects particularly take you out of the movie. I thought it was certainly that franchise has been pretty shit since the second Alien, and I think it was a return to form. But I have to say, I think Ben Valfish did a fantastic job on it. It's a really interesting score because in many respects it's kind of quite respectful of the legacy of the original. So there's a lot of very traditional orchestral elements, but then with these really fat synths that are totally isolated, like it's not busy, it's just like really in your face. So really enjoyed that. I've got a funny story about Ben because I needed help orchestrating and a conductor on my very first studio picture, which was a Mandy Moore movie called Chasing Liberty. And my agent recommended that I met this guy called Ben, who was just out of college and was like making waves as a conductor and stuff. And I remember listening to his highly complex orchestral compositions that he'd done. But I liked him because he had a really, really hearty laugh. So I gave him that gig to do, and we got on well. And we did another film, which was a French parkour film. And then because he did so well, my agent put him in touch with Dario Marianelli, and he started working with him and orchestrated and conducted the Oscar-winning score for Atonement. Anyway, several years hence, I was having my very first meeting with Hans Zimmer, which overran. For anyone who's had a meeting with Hans Zimmer, that's not a surprise because he loves to enthuse about what we do. So anyway, overran. His assistant came in and said, listen, your 4 o'clock's here outside. And he went, oh, bring him in. And he said, Christian, have you heard of this guy, Benjamin Valfish? And I said, oh, I gave him his first job. And Hans went, I'm just about to give him his last, which was very Hans. Charles, you said you'd seen something recently.
Conclave.
Okay.
With Ralph Fiennes.
Oh.
It's about the death of the Pope, and therefore they have to elect a new Pope. And you know, I've talked on this on our chats about my suggestion that composers either take acting lessons or study what actors do because it will influence the way you write. It is a master class in acting
Yeah.
because the dynamics required to do the kind of thing they do, because the Pope is always elected in secret.
Yeah.
And so that's what they deal with here. And of course, Ralph Fiennes is wonderful and Stanley Tucci. There's another guy in it. He is a black gentleman who plays a cardinal who is fantastic. And I'm thrilled to see that he's in a series that I think they're going to start their third season soon called The Gangs of London.
Right.
And have you ever seen that
No, I haven't.
series?
I had
Okay.
enough
And
personal experience with the Gangs of London. But no, sorry, Charles, I didn't mean to interrupt. Karen.
Well, at any rate, one of the lead actor was in Peaky Blinders. He wasn't the lead actor in Peaky Blinders, obviously. That was Cillian Murphy. But the kid is terrific. But this gentleman that I just remarked about in Conclave is one of the gang chiefs, if you please, and his range of acting. I mean, every time you see him in The Cardinal, you see this really strong, intense, ethical person. And then there is a denouement in his particular part of the story. And I don't want to give it away. I'm just going to say that the range is the difference between, I know this is a strange analogy. It's like Mahler,
Yeah.
where everything, I think it's the first symphony that starts out very quietly and just an A going on forever. And all of a sudden it just blooms and there's this, and it's Mahler, you know.
Yeah.
The guy's range is like that. And then he does the same thing in The Gangs of London, where he's this ruthless SOB. And then there's this moment where you want to cry with him. So I recommend Conclave
Right.
to pay attention to the actors and what they're doing and the little subtleties. The story is wonderful.
Yeah.
And the ending is quite poignant, surprising. It's wrapped up in a nice, you know what I'm going to call it, a Gordian knot instead of a nice little ribbon. You know what a Gordian knot is?
No, I pretended that I did, but then you caught me out.
Well, the Gordian knot, I think it's probably mythological. But when Alexander the Great was conquering, as he was doing, when he got, the story is when he got to the gates, if there were gates, of Persia, there was like a high priest or somebody standing there with a couple of oxen with a yoke, and there's this knot. It's called the Gordian knot. And the guy says to Alexander, if anybody who can untie this will conquer Persia. And I still think this is mythology. So Alexander looks at the knot and he takes out his sword and he hacks it.
Ah.
He doesn't bother with untie. And that's, then he conquers Persia. But so I think this thing, the end of this movie reminded me of this Gordian knot thing where it just like, boom, it just changes everything. Instead of what we would usually see in real life where everybody waits outside St. Peter's and they wait for the black smoke or the white smoke. And if it's the white smoke, what's the Latin? Verhabem papem, I think it is. We have a father or whatever. But Conclave, definitely.
Okay.
And my wife and I bought it. It's on Apple TV. I don't know. Do you get that?
Yeah. We have that here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I recommend that film. I think you'll like that.
Brilliant.
But I want to say something to you, Christian.
Okay.
Very seriously. I want you to reconsider this thing about NAMM. I know why you're reluctant to go, and it was a gentle and loving thing you said. But your friends need you there.
Mm-hmm.
It'll give them moral support to see you show up.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you,
So
Charles.
think about that.
Yeah, I will do. Very seriously. I mean,
need
it's
you
so
there.
difficult when you're disconnected. I mean, I'm familiar with the geography of LA, and I know that there's absolutely there will be no danger by going, but it is it just your family, like particularly your kids, are going. You're going to the end of the world. But I will take that on board, Charles. Thank you so much. Dale has just joined us. And we were joined by something furry behind Dale, and then Dale switched his camera off, and that furry thing is gone. Was that your studio dog?
Yeah, I don't know how that works, so here we are.
Where are we speaking to you from?
Texas.
And how's Texas doing at the moment?
It is snowing.
No.
Yeah, first time in, I don't know, 2-3 years. Yeah, we got about 3 inches out there.
That's incredible.
It's a big deal here.
Dale, you might want to mute your mic because I'm echoing for some reason, which is I hate the sound of my own voice. So you might want to mute your mic. Cheers, mate. Yeah, it snowed a bit in Britain, and we're brilliant with weather here. There was a point I remember about a decade ago when the rail network ground to a halt because of leaves on tracks. The country came to a grinding halt because there was about half an inch of snow the other day. I think that just basically with British people, any excuse not to go to work, we'll jump to it. I'm so sorry. Is it Linus? I think it is Linus. You've been there for a while. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Yeah, that's funny what that you said about the snow and stuff with it. Like in Sweden, northern Sweden, there's no problem with snow or anything. In southern Sweden, it's let's cancel everything. So, there's quite a difference. It's funny to hear the difference between Texas and California too. It's remarkably separate worlds.
Yeah.
Did you say you were in California?
No, I'm in Sweden.
Sweden. Okay.
And speaking of Sweden, when we were talking about series and movies, I would suggest a Swedish drama called Let Go on Netflix. It's same directors, Baby Reindeer, and did a lot of good stuff. But it's a relationship drama, and it's really cool, emotion-wise, both in terms of audio and picture-wise. So.
A film that I would recommend everyone avoiding, I watched totally by mistake, was To Kill a Sacred Deer. Has anyone seen that? I haven't seen a film as scary as that since Eraserhead. And Eraserhead is a very old film. It was David Lynch's first film. I looked at it because it was that Greek director who did The Favourite. And it has Colin Farrell in and that chap from Saltburn, I forget his name, young Irish actor. I mean, amazing performances. And this Greek director has this, I think that, Charles, you'd find it interesting, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a really, really harrowing movie. But he has this very interesting way of directing the actors. And I would say it reminds me of Beckett. He gets people to speak in monotones and it's very quick bursts of rhythm, which is just a very interesting, different take on acting. But also going back to The Outrun and again talking about acting performances, Saoirse Ronan, I don't think she'll get noticed for this performance simply because you can't see her doing it. And there's one thing that really winds me up about really great performances is when you can see the chops. You know, it's like when a musician is playing and they're really making you understand how bloody brilliant they're doing. But with this performance by Saoirse, you just get completely engulfed and bearing in mind she's from Ireland, she's not from Scotland. She gets the Northern Scottish accent so right. I don't know if you've ever been to the Highlands, Linus, of Scotland. It's really interesting because basically we have the Central Belt in Scotland. Then north of that, it becomes very Scandinavian, the accent. But also, it's not English common law here. It's Norse common law. So there's a right to roam and stuff that you get in Scandinavian countries. And a little known fact is there's a group of islands called the Shetlands, which is well north. It's kind of halfway between Scotland and Iceland. And the Shetlands hate the mainland of Scotland, and I believe they want to join Norway. But it's all go at the moment. Everything's up for grabs. Apparently Greenland too. But we won't go into that. So anyway, on that note, there's a composer competition going on, isn't there, Simon, at the moment? We released a vault called mallet piano, which is basically a piano played with mallets. And Simon came up with a great idea of encouraging people to really try and come up with something original of their own. If you want to take part in these composer challenges, you basically go to thecrowhillcompany.com and then it's /composing-challenge. I wrote dash because you said dash. But it's dash or hyphen, composing dash challenge. And
you sent an email out on that to everybody.
Yeah, we should do, and also just keep your eye out for our network dispatches, because we always put them in there. But I'll put more of an obvious link on the homepage as well, because I'm currently the webmaster for Crowhill, which is why the web is our site is full of mistakes and loads of spelling mistakes. We are going to be doing a really, really exciting composer challenge at the end of this month. We'll be announcing it on this podcast. So if we're going to be directing at people who haven't received a composing commission yet, but everyone will be welcome. But it's something that we're going to encourage. It's basically going to be a audio branding composing commission challenge with a proper fee and a budget for a couple of musicians and stuff. So we'll go through the process of audio branding, and actually Alan, our friend, I was going to get him to maybe come and speak about audio branding and stuff, which is going to be very interesting. On the subject of vaults, basically it's been very interesting because when we first launched it, we thought, okay, we'll turn this into a subscription thing. So basically we'll offer it for free and then we'll put it all into a vault and then people can subscribe to it and basically pay for it. Everyone said, subscription bad, no, we've listened to that. And in fact, I think it's fair to say with another free model that I was founded, that subscription model doesn't, anyway, I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm going to get into trouble, get my knuckles wrapped again. But basically what we thought we'd do with the vaults that have gone into the archive is that basically in 6-month cycles, we're going to re-release them. But we're going to make them donation-ware so people can buy. The idea with vaults is the difficulty with these free bits of software is that people come, download the whole lot, burn a hole in the ozone layer from server costs and never use them. So the idea with vaults is for people to be engaged and to kind of grab them when they want them, but there to be a bit of a time limit. But what we thought would be good would be to re-release the archived ones, but make it donation-ware, so maybe $5, something like that, and all of that money goes to charity. So something that I'll be inviting the network and people here to discuss is what may be a good charity. It's what I've found with donations in the past is you can go to these big charities like UNICEF or the World Wildlife Fund, and it's a drop in the ocean. But in fact, it's the smaller charities where you can really make an effect, particularly if it's not just a windfall donation that's made. Something like Volts will just be a continuous stream of income, not huge amounts, I imagine, but a continuous stream of income. And if you feel that there's a charity that's appropriate, and I would hope maybe something to do with music, then I'll be all ears. Jay.
So actually, I don't know if because it's US based they would count, but Music Cares. Actually, I had a friend who, what happened to him? Something happened to him. He was homeless, not homeless. He got kicked out, and through Music Care like hooked him up with an apartment in somewhere north in LA. And right now, Music Care is helping musicians that have lost, their houses, their studios and stuff. So I think that could be.
And is that Music Airs as in Heir to the Throne?
Music Cares.
Music Cares.
It's all together with just one C.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
music and care.
Thanks for that, Jay. I'll definitely look into that.
Speaking of Volts, I had a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. I was not gonna mention it because the other free thing, I lost it recently because I restarted my computer. And the subscription thing, I'm not gonna download it. I don't wanna. But
the other free thing.
We're just gonna call it the other free. I loved it, but we're not gonna mention it by name. I'm not gonna mention it by name. Another point. I was wondering, how can we help the Crow Hill? In general, I'm just wondering. I've seen in the network, in the forums, some things about MIDI problems, people trying to map things. Is what I've been paying attention to because it's something I know. People making their own samples. So I was wondering, how can we help?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, something that I'm really looking forward to this year is getting the Audio Inc. or audioincubator.com platform up and running, which will be what PianoBook ports to, and honestly, PianoBook is of everything I've done in my life, I would say that it's possibly within my profession, other than being a dad. PianoBook is something I'm deeply proud of and really believe in. So I would take a look there, Jay. And the thing I'm proudest about with PianoBook is that it's kind of bringing people together. And there are people that, I saw them meet for the first time at NAMM, and they've since kind of set businesses up and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be getting all of my old PianoBook ones that I took off when I lost custodianship of it. I'll be putting all of that stuff back on. But not quite ready to talk about it yet, but there is going to be some incredible crowdsourcing projects coming with Crow Hill soon. And, what's going on in the industry at the moment has been, I think, an important lesson for Crow Hill. Something that I was really delighted about was the enthusiasm towards our electric piano, the Imperial Electric, because for me, thank you, Jay. For me, something I was worried about was getting trapped into the media composer orchestral thing, and I think that we're going to spread our wings a bit wider than that. And I think that there's this technology that I think works really well, and it is totally agnostic where DAWs are concerned, where operating systems are concerned, and it's MIDI, particularly these files called MIDI files. And we're going to be doing something really, really exciting with those. I'm also on the verge. There's all sorts of PR stuff that I have to do. I'm on the verge of announcing the co-founder of Crow Hill, who I haven't revealed yet, and that is really, really exciting. And they've been with me from the beginning. You may or may not have heard, but I operated some heavy machinery badly a couple of years ago by the name of Twitter, and it put me in a really, really bad spot. And this person who I knew, but we knew each other. They came and just kept in touch, and it's just great to be in partnership with them. So that's something that's going to be exciting. That's going to be announced possibly around NAMM. Yeah, I think crises. We're mentioning on this, and maybe it's a point to end on. Crises can bring the worst out in people, but it also can bring the very best. And something that I've experienced, losing parents and losing family members, is often the people that we consider to be friends don't deal with crises particularly well. And often people, like just neighbors, can become absolutely saintly. And I think that we'll probably see that in LA of humanity at its very best, I imagine. And I hope, if anything comes out of the heinous stuff that's going on for so many residents of Los Angeles, is the kindness of other humans, because we're capable of being really lovely to each other, and particularly Americans. I fucking love America, and I love the American spirit. It's an inspiration, and I think that it's got a bad rap internationally of late, and I think that we'll see humanity at its very best. Charles, you raised a hand.
It's very quick. When you mentioned what can we do with and for Crow Hill, so it's a question somewhat rhetorical, which you don't need to answer now. What is your affiliation with the local, meaning where you are, the local education system? Because I think that if you can create a strategic alliance with them, with what you're doing, I would certainly be happy to do anything. I mean,
thank you.
Talk to the kids about acting. I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So that's just something to bear in mind.
Well, something that I'm hoping to realize this year is to build a facility in Edinburgh. And the good thing, I'm a Londoner, I'm an Englishman, but, you can get to anywhere in the UK in the same day. And we have except when there are leaves and there's that much snow, we have a pretty good infrastructure here. And there is a pool of musicianship in Scotland that is extraordinary. But it's a bit light on facilities and technology and stuff. And it will be my life dream come true to create a facility. Part of that facility, and this is something that I've been dreaming of for about 15 years, is to create a studio that doesn't have any CPUs in it. I would love to give people the experience, not just of threading tape and using and laying EBU down and all of that stuff, but actually musicians of the experience of working in a non-Pro Tools environment or a non-Logic environment, where you get to reflect as a tape is rewinding, and to do things that way. And it's not the old way, it's just a different way. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, and I want to take everyone on that journey of building a place. I've found a bingo hall. You can probably look it up, actually. It's in Portobello. It's on Bath Street. There's a bingo hall there. Bingo halls in this country, they're like small cinemas. It would be perfect, but the ravages of the North Sea may have rendered it too much of a money pit. But basically, there's some stuff going on, and it'll probably hit the news fairly soon, but it will enable me to set up a facility that will be a place where people can come. I'll end on this thought. I don't know if you're familiar with the term operating theatre, as in where surgery happens. And they're called operating theatres because they used to be exactly that. And in fact, you'll see a lot of seminar halls, like there are these things called the Christmas lectures that happen here in the UK. These are done in an old operating theatre, which would be this circular space with tiered seating around it, where people would watch people carry out surgeries. Most of them were medical students. Some were just sick individuals, because surgery in those days was no pretty sight. I love the idea of a scoring theatre. So a place that has an open door policy, which is glassed off, where people can watch people record music, a place for inspiration, but also because I truly believe that the true skill that is purely experiential that we need to acquire is the ability to collaborate and to deal with working with people and to deal with the empathy and to have the empathy required to get the best out of people. And I would love to have an open door policy to inspire people to carry on the thing that we're doing, which is making music and recording it, and the wonderful time that we can have doing that. And jeepers, man, if there's anything that we can do to bring this world together, it's make a bit of music together. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. And thank you all so much for joining and your contributions. And it's just lovely to have a place to hang out every week. I really do look forward to it. And just to anyone who's watching from the States or anyone who has friends out in California and stuff, I just wish you all the well, and just please listen to what's being recommended. And as I said, fuck the material stuff. Just make sure you're safe. So on that note, loads of love to you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.